So we all know here that we're here today to interview Kasey Fu. So I will start with a bit of a biography on Kasey. All right, so Kasey went to Sir Winston Churchill High School in Calgary. He attended the University of Waterloo for a joint degree in science and business, as well as a minor in economics. So in university, Kasey acquired many internships and volunteer opportunities, which included an artificial kidney startup, it's really cool, a student health organization, a volunteer-based consulting club, and working with multiple software companies. He's also won many hackathons, such as Hack Harvard, UofT Hacks in Toronto, and Hack the North in Waterloo. Kasey currently works in Seattle, Washington as a program manager for Microsoft. Kasey's side hobbies include creative writing. He's currently writing a light novel, playing guitar, working out, and playing video games on his Switch. Okay. So yeah, I guess we'll dive right into the questions. We again, as in the past workshops, we have it split into two different categories. So one of them being Kasey's own background and career, and another one being general questions and advice for high schoolers. Okay, so Wendy, why don't you kick it off?
Yes, of course. First, we'll let Kasey talk a little bit about his experience and just his own introduction as well. So go ahead, Kasey.
Well, first of all, I think before I get started here, big round of applause to Jeff Jing and everyone else, and Wendy for really kicking off this entire workshop and having me on here. I think this is a really nice initiative. As for myself, I think you kind of pretty much covered most of what I would have wanted to say about myself anyways. But I'm very much happy to dive right into the questions, talk more about myself in that aspect rather than me rambling on about my own little high school to university journey. So you can go ahead and ask me questions or whatever, and we can get started there.
All right, that sounds good. We'll dive in. We're going to start with some of your background and careers. So our first question is, what made you decide to work for Microsoft? And was there a lot of competition to attain your current position?
So I'll be straight up honest. My decision to work there is because beggars can't be choosers, and you have to, if a job offer comes, right, you would want to take the job offer. It's hard to get a job offer. I think, but broadly speaking though, I think at the end of the day, you would want to take a step back and see where your skills are at, where your employment opportunities lie with that skill set, plus your background and all that sort of stuff. So I decided to work there because I had a large interest in tech. That was where my skill set was, that intersection between business and software. Because I went to Waterloo and it was a very technical school, right? I think that was kind of what influenced my decision as well. So I kind of decided to build up my skill set towards that sort of portfolio. And then I addressed that sort of skill portfolio towards applying for jobs, just like Microsoft. And luckily, I had a few other job offers, but I think prioritizing that, obviously, Microsoft's a large name. So I decided to just prioritize what felt like what's most important for me, or my early 20s for a large brand name company with the best position that I could get out of all the places I applied to. And I think that's pretty much what happened.
All right, thank you for answering that. All right, so now we're going to take our first question from the high school advice category. So the first one from this category is, can you talk a little bit about your high school learning plan and schedule?
I'll be honest, this schedule was very loose, if at all there was a schedule. And I think at the end of the day, a lot of us would probably realize, especially during COVID times, right? Because at the end of the day, I didn't even, I didn't have to go through COVID during high school. So the schedule for me was, go to school, do my extracurriculars, try to get homework done, hang out with friends a lot. But in terms of actual online courses, which I know it's been an on and off process throughout the past few years, I think it's really important to get in a very healthy routine. And particularly, I think, especially pertaining towards high school, a study habit, right? And now that's not really realistic to just always, review your notes after class, review homework after class and all that stuff. When you have extracurriculars, you have this to host as well. You have other stuff to attend to, you want to hang out with friends. So I suggest as long as you get into some sort of habit that sticks to your routine, whether it's procrastinating whether it's doing stuff 3 hours before something is due, as long as it works for you, I think that's actually the best way to do so. As long as you figure it out through, experimenting what sort of routine to get into. Like for me, for example, I was a pretty big procrastinator in high school. So that's, obviously don't follow my route. I don't think I'm a great student example from that perspective, but I felt I was able to get into a routine that worked for me, at least, that addressed my working style. So I would say focus on that first. If you're a hardcore procrastinator, but you can get the stuff done at the end of the day, maybe that might work. Unless you're in a group project, obviously, then people will be like, please do this stuff by this time. But yeah, that's my general advice. Get into a good habit, study habit routine that works for you.
All right, thank you so much for answering that. I just want to give a quick note to everyone participating today. Feel free to send any questions that you have into the chat and we'll be reading them out loud. So Kasey will be able to answer those as well. So just keep that in mind. Anything pops into your head, feel free to enter it into the chat. All right, our next question from your background and career is, how did you manage to achieve so much in such a short period of time?
I mean, I don't think it's very much a short period of time. I mean, I think my whole journey, if you go back all the way to high school, going to Churchill back in 2014, I think it's been 8 years since, right? So it was a long journey. I even started university. So I started university at the Waterloo in 2016. So it's already been 6 years since then already. So it's, by no means is it long at all, or sorry, short at all. It's quite long, and it took me a lot of time to figure out what I exactly wanted to do, like a good mix of what I'm good at plus what I wanted to do. And then mixing that together is when I was able to find a sort of narrow route in, the job I'm working in right now. But it definitely takes time. And I encourage everyone to explore the experiences that you feel like you want to do, as well as what you feel like you would be good at. And as long as you are able to take that time to do that, especially at an early stage right now during high school and first few years of college / university, I think that's a better way to think about it.
That's very insightful. Thank you. So now we have a question from.
It's a joint major, what you would call it. So the official title of the bachelor's degree is I think it's an honors bachelor's of science in science of business. And the idea behind that, I actually think it's a very interesting program, because the idea behind this program is half your major is science. So you learn a bunch of life science courses, bio, chem, physics if you want to, and you get some sort of degree of like your choosing. You get to choose your course, some of your electives, as long as they're science electives, and then you get a bunch of business courses, which you don't really get a lot of degree in your choosing this time around. You kind of focus on what's provided the curriculum. But yeah, I thought it was pretty interesting, because I, just like you guys, I'm sure a lot of you, I had no idea what I wanted to do back in 2016 when I enrolled in this program, but I thought because it was a double major, I would have 2 backups, right? In case, and also a minor in economics too. So yeah, just pursue 3 things just in case, things changed, and I could always lean my back towards one major if I didn't like another. And you can tell I'm applying more of the business / economics stuff rather than this life sciences stuff. So I figured out based on that degree what I wanted to do. So it's a joint degree, sorry. It's I rambled on, but the direct answer is it's a joint, what they call a joint degree.
All right, thank you so much. Our next question from the background / career category is, when you chose a major in science and business, as well as a minor in economics, what did you take into consideration when choosing?
I mean, I think based on what I addressed in the previous question, I know I rambled on. I actually feel like I answered half of this question from my previous answer, but if I were to expand on this, I looked at, first of all, and I encourage everyone to do this when they do apply to university, is look at the actual curriculum, the courses that you would actually have to take. And be aware of how difficult these courses are, be aware of whether or not you actually really want to take these courses and how that applies to what you want to do in the future. Now, you have no idea, then that's totally fine. It's more so look at what courses feel very interesting to you and look at what courses might have to be looked at if you're trying to get into some sort of master's, professional, med school, law school, whatever it is. As long as those courses cover those requirements, I would look at that. I think for my sake, for science and business, it was more so the business side looked pretty interesting. There's a lot of economics and mathematical courses on that side. So that's why there's also a minor in there. And then for science, I had a lot of degree of flexibility of what courses I wanted to take in regards to life science electives. And that's what I think prompted me to go for that.
All right, thank you for sharing your standpoint on that. So our next question from general questions / advice is, did you have time to be pursuing hobbies and extracurriculars throughout high school and university, and to what extent?
I did a lot. In fact, I don't think people should do what I did. I spent almost 50% of my university time in extracurriculars, job hunting, stuff that was not studying. Now, first of all, don't do what I did. I'm taking my own life lessons and suggesting that people obviously focus on their studies. But I think what I did benefited me the most because of the way my curriculum was structured. It was less about my GPA and less about my marks because we're in university, right? When you get into university, experience matters just as much as marks do, if not more. So I would definitely try to invest a lot of time into building experiences, whether it's building a skill, getting an internship, all that sort of stuff, volunteering. So that's what I pretty much did. So I think because of that, my marks suffered in some semesters more than others because I invested a lot of time into, like you mentioned in the biography, a lot of different various extracurriculars, volunteering opportunities, pro bono consulting clubs, other various different clubs that look really cool on the resume. Spending a lot of time looking for an internship or looking for a summer job, right? And I think looking back in retrospect, that's definitely a great decision I made because at the end of the day, people, at least my employers, right? But in my job field, people care more about the experience rather than the marks. So you can say that I didn't exactly balance it that well. I definitely had to sacrifice a lot of the academic side of my portfolio towards, volunteering, extracurriculars, and experiences. But I think it definitely paid out in the long run. But that was just for my route. Definitely everyone should be different. GPA does matter for a lot of folks as well.
Thank you for sharing that. We have a question from the chat, and it is, how did you prepare and learn for hackathons?
I didn't. I jumped in head straight without knowing anything, especially my first hackathon. So I think the best way to address this question is provide you an example of what happened in my first hackathon. I think after the first hackathon, it got a little bit easier because you knew what to expect. You knew what your skills were, what you need to improve on, and all that stuff. But my first hackathon, I jumped in with 3 other Waterloo students who were much more smarter than I was. They were all in very, very technical programs at Waterloo compared to me. I was in a business and life sciences program, right? So nothing that technical at all, especially when it comes to software programming. They were in either Eng or computer science. And they've already done a lot of hackathons. This one guy he's told me that was his 8th hackathon already, 7th or 8th or something like that. And I was like, I don't want to say that this is my first one, right? So I kind of went in pretending, full confidence without really knowing exactly what I was doing at all. But I think at the end of the day, it's more so conquering the fear of not knowing and disappointing your group and just trying to learn on the spot and trying to learn and watch what your group members are doing, try to emulate what they're doing, try to read up, take that first hackathon experience and then apply it to all the other hackathon experiences. So I would say, in general, you can obviously prepare for a hackathon by learning how to code, obviously. I think in a hackathon setting though, you definitely want to just jump into your first hackathon without being too scared, conquer that fear and just do it, just to get that experience so that you know what to expect the next time around. Because I had somewhat coding experience, but definitely it was not good enough for just trying to win anything in a hackathon. So it's more so conquering the fear and getting readjusted into it and then applying that, and then it gets much easier from then on.
All right, thank you for sharing on that. So our next question from advice would be, what were your biggest struggles in early high school, so grade 10 and 11, and how did you overcome them?
Yeah, I mean, to be honest, back in 2014, and I guess I should probably expand on this with context here, is back in 2014, there was the whole Alberta floods back in 2013, right? And I think 2013 spring was the last time I ever touched a notebook until the start of my high school life in 2014 because of the floods and because I don't know what they were called, but we had those like provincial exams or whatever they were for grade 9, and they were canceled because of the floods. And that was the last time I ever touched a notebook. I spent the summer fooling around, didn't really do anything. So I came into Churchill in 2014 under the full IB curriculum. Absolutely, I was not prepared at all. I don't even think I could factor anything in terms of math equations. So that was how bad it was. So yeah, I think it was at the end of the day, it's getting to a good friend group is actually, I feel like, the most important. I'm someone, and I think I'm aware of this now, is I'm very influenced by who's around me and the environment around me. I get influenced a lot by my environment. So I think making a lot of friends with IB students in Churchill in grade 10, 11, and 12 helped boost my study habits a bit more. And also was able to, I was able to emulate how they studied. I was able to basically boost my marks up from grade 10 and 11. During that time, I was just too scared to really learn from them or make a lot of IB friends. But then I think afterwards, when I started doing that, I saw an increase in my grades simply because I studied the way they were. I saw them studying, so I was like, oh, I guess I should study. That type of, it's not the healthiest mindset, obviously. It's just, I guess that's how I was able to do it. But in and all, grade 10 and 11, I think the transition between middle school to grade 10 is actually really hard. I'm sure a lot of folks here are also in IB, I'm assuming. So it's probably even harder for you guys. So all in all, get into a very studious friend group, or at least, encourage everyone to do so. Because I think as everyone pushes each other, it's a win-win situation for everyone within the group. So I think that actually is a great way to do so, because all the study groups that, everyone who put in effort and pushed each other really well in the Churchill IB program I was in until I was out of it was really, really good, and it paid off.
Thank you so much for sharing that more on the social aspect. That's definitely a side that I personally don't see often whenever I ask someone about high school and their past experiences. So I really appreciate that. We're going to jump into our next question from background and career, and it is related to what you've mentioned before. So you said that you've participated in a lot of volunteering opportunities and internships. So how did you seek out these opportunities?
So I think there are 2 or 3 channels of applications that I had to go through. So I guess if you're talking about university, right, I can talk about university because I think high school is a little bit different. High school, you have to very actively seek out, send emails, hand in your resume in person to some places, give your resume to teachers, give your resume to clubs or whatever it is, right? I think for university is a little bit different in that every semester, so we're talking September, December, and then January to the summer, every semester at the start of the semester, there's club fairs and there's like basically a lot of social media engagement in terms of clubs and various different volunteering groups trying to get new members. That's your opportunity when you first start that semester to hop into those opportunities. Apply. There's usually like a portal, submit your information, submit your resume, maybe type up a sentence or paragraph or 2 about why you want to join, all that sort of stuff. I don't know if that's the same logistical style that high school, that I guess high school clubs and volunteering opportunities do now, but that was I think in university, that was how I got a lot of those opportunities, sending emails occasionally too, if those opportunities didn't have like a portal that you could just apply to. But definitely, yeah, apply. Usually all these clubs and organizations have postings on their social medias that you can just apply to. I think that's how I did it.
All right, thank you for your insight on that. So we'll move back down to general questions and advice. And the next question has to do with IB, which you talked about earlier. So to what extent is IB necessary in order to be successful? Does it really make a difference in the long run?
So to answer this question, I think my answer would be slightly biased because I went from full IB to completely no IB at all by the end of grade 10. So I think it's actually important. In retrospect, I feel like I should have never dropped out and I should have put my head down, studied hard, and got through it because not only obviously does IB open up some opportunities, right? Not all opportunities, but definitely some opportunities and pertain towards like a very high level university / post-secondary that you want to obtain, maybe international in the US or whatever it is. Not all schools care about this, obviously, but definitely it boosts your repertoire. But I think at the end of the day, what matters the most is the study habits that it helps you drive, because generally speaking, there's more stuff to do. You have a more higher responsibility to manage and put your head down and address, build a really good study habit to do so. And I think IB probably helps a lot of students keep that study habit all the way into university as well, so that they can upkeep their marks, their same really high marks into university. And obviously at the same time, if you really do care about going international, I think IB helps a lot. It's an international program, it's in the name. So I think that's what I would say.
Thank you so much. We have a question in the chat. It is, what was your grade point average when graduating high school?
Man, there's some very bold questions in here. Okay. For me, it was not that high at all if compared to probably like a lot of the folks in this chat. I'm assuming a lot of them are here, very studious, hardworking, are in the IB program. Like mine was around like mid to high 80s. I don't exactly remember the actual number because I never calculated the average, but I remember it was mid to high 80s. The thing that brought a lot of my marks down was my English mark. English tends to be marked very strongly I think in high school, if I'm not mistaken. That's unfortunately, that's something that I should have probably put more effort into, but yeah, I think that's, so I mean, I think the takeaway here, and I think that the root cause of why you probably asked this is how can I get into university if I had this X average, right? And I think as long as you're able to bring obviously take a look at the grade averages. These days, grades are inflated as hell. So I would definitely try to take a look first at what the expectations are for the programs you want to apply to. Make sure you reach those expectations. Some marks, and some programs, require 70s, some programs require 80s. I really don't like talking about numbers here, but just make sure your average basically makes the mark for what these programs mention on their sites, and I think you should be good.
All right, thank you so much. So our next question is, what advice would you give to your high school self?
I mean, there's obviously, I've reflected on this a lot. There's a lot of stuff that, first of all, there's a lot of stuff that I did poorly in high school. A lot of things, both personal and academically related. So if I were to talk about academically, right? Stop going home and playing games when you get home. Start going to the library after school. Stay there in the library for a solid hour and a half. Review the notes from that day. I think the one thing that I've observed from my friends who were very successful in high school, right, is even after class was finished, every single day they reviewed stuff. And I think overall that not only boosts your memory prowess, but it also gets you in the study habit. And I think building that habit was probably really important. So I feel like back then I probably should have cared more about the study habits I had, rather than feeling like, oh, I'm just not smart, or I shouldn't do this, whatever it was. So I think that's what I would tell myself is, yeah, study more. You think you studied a lot, but you really didn't in retrospect. But also at the same time, join and do something very extracurricular related, like the folks here are probably doing. Because at the end of the day, my marks obviously matter in high school, right? Because if you want to go to a certain university or program, that matters a lot. But extracurriculars also matter in your portfolio. especially these days as well, since people look for a diverse skill set. And I think I should have probably done, I think there was this JA program, and I think that's still probably running. I probably should have done that. I also probably should have joined 1 or 2 more clubs in high school as well and tried to get some more extracurricular activities done. I did a lot in grade 12, but not a lot in grade 10 and 11. So I should have done more so in grade 10 and 11.
All right, thank you. We have a few more questions in the chat. Could you suggest a good way to find out what certain courses are like from certain universities?
Yeah, to answer this very quickly, every school has like their own student-made portal where there's basically a repository of courses and reviews of both the professor and the course difficulty and the course content. Ours was, for Waterloo, was called, what was it called? I think it was something, it's called What's My Major, or there was another one, I've completely forgot. But yeah, if whatever university you go to, there for sure will be like reviews of both the professor, the difficulty of the course, and all that stuff that you can find. I wouldn't be worried about that.
All right, cool, thank you. So let's address the second question that came from the chat, which is, what is key for you to enter into Microsoft?
I mean, I think if you want a very fast, direct answer, I would say two stuff off the top of my head would be communication skills. So using that to obviously crush the interview. That being said, obviously preparing for the interview. But then the second item would probably be demonstrating previous experiences through whatever capacity, previous projects, previous other internships. So those are the 2 items I had, and I think those are the 2 items that I pushed forward a lot in my repertoire when I applied. And I think that was the main key difference. I think although, obviously these are top level answers, if you want to really break this down, obviously communication gets built up through life experiences. These internships take time to build up as well. But yeah, these are the 2 main key items. But you can obviously, we could break this down. It could be a whole different conversation by itself about how you could obtain all these experiences and how you can improve communication skills, how you can be better during interviews, and all that stuff.
All right, thank you. Our next question kind of relates to the one that was just sent in the chat. Regarding Microsoft and the highly competitive process of getting employed in the company, what qualities do you think that they looked for in applicants?
So is this just for Microsoft, or is it just for in general software employers? I guess this is generally Microsoft.
Yeah. Okay, let's go with general software companies. That'll probably give a wider range.
Yeah, I think if I were to try to speak broadly on general software companies, my answer would be very vague, but it'd be more so looking at the company culture and looking at, based on that company culture, whether they value, for my specific position, right? If we're talking my specific position, Microsoft cares a lot about technical folks. By technical, how do you demonstrate that? Well, maybe the number of hackathons you did, maybe the number of software projects, maybe it's your computer science background, whatever it is. So that's one example. And if you apply that to various different other employers and their culture and what they expect from people, you can probably deduct and say, well, these employers, if they care about X culture or X value that you have, apply that X value towards their application. I think that's pretty much what I could say. For general software companies, it's more so like if you're it's computer science, obviously, technical skills matter a lot. If it's Microsoft, and for my specific position, program management, my team cared a lot about software and technical expertise. So as long as you demonstrate that, I think you would be good to go. But yeah, just more so do your research on these various different companies, because each company has different values, and do your research on the job applications that they provide, because there's role responsibilities in there. And then I think as long as you feel like you align with those said role responsibilities, and you showcase that both during the interview and in your resume / cover letter, I think you would be in a great position.
All right, thank you for that. So our next question from a high school standpoint is, in these times of COVID-19, what are some good ways to make the most out of my time, and where and how to gather volunteer opportunities or work experience?
Yeah, I think this is a very interesting question, and I think from a high school standpoint, it'd be probably hard to brainstorm, right? Because there's various online opportunities you can definitely try to find. You literally it takes maybe even a basic Google search to really help find a lot of these various different openings. Although I think broadly speaking, um, every club has transitioned to a digital environment. A lot of them, even high school clubs. I would definitely try to find, whether or not the club that you're interested in has also transitioned to digital meetings, digital volunteer opportunities, digital events, all this stuff, just like the one that we're in right now, right? Um, so that would be first and foremost. And then obviously, I think once the pandemic dies down a little bit, if you really want to work in person as well, I think it's a good opportunity to find work experience. I think working during high school, I should have definitely did more of that, because working and the perspective of learning how hard money is to make, the earlier that you learn how to really get that experience, the better it is for you to realize, just how difficult it can be to be an adult once you do become an adult. But yeah, I think so. I guess, to summarize, from a high school standpoint, try to look whether or not those clubs have transitioned into digital events for you to join. Keep looking for digital volunteering opportunities. Well, I'm sure there's a lot of stuff that can be thrown around. And if it's personal side hobbies and stuff, there's a lot of stuff they can learn online. Online courses, online skills that you can learn off various different websites like LinkedIn, Coursera. All these various different things are available to you now online. And I think, yeah, you should definitely, there are a lot of skills that you could definitely try to learn, and you can still put that on your resume too. All these online courses outside of just your high school.
Thank you. Next, from our background and career category, from your volunteer and internship experience, to what extent has volunteering helped with how far you've come in your career?
It definitely helped a lot. And if you guys understand how the snowball effect works, right? You start small and just keeps building up and up and up and up and up exponentially. I think that's exactly what happened to me in regards to finding a volunteer opportunity at first, because finding job experience, it's a chicken and egg problem. You can't really find a job if you don't have experience already. And I'm sure some of you guys already have experienced that firsthand. And having volunteer opportunities, doing them, being part of them, showcasing your impact, and then fleshing that out on your resume, pretty much stands you out and gets you out of that chicken and egg problem a lot of the time, especially when you're finding your first actual paid job. So that's what happened to me. That artificial kidney startup that I worked for was a volunteering position. I emailed the founder of that startup, that company based in Waterloo and in Canada, Ontario. I emailed them saying, this is a volunteer opportunity that I want to try to help you with. I'm available 40 hours a week throughout the whole summer of 2016. Here's my resume. Here's a summary of my experience and background. Please let me do this. So he invited me for an interview. I got the volunteering position. Volunteering positions are easier to get than actual job opportunities, obviously, right? Because it's unpaid stuff. But I think with regards to that, you take that opportunity, run with it, build up that experience, and your basically your skill set and whatever you want to do in your actual paid job down the road. As long as those volunteer opportunities help provide some of those experiences and skill, as well as have something on your resume, I think it triggers a snowball effect, and then you eventually will be able to find an actual job and you go from there.
All right, thank you so much. So let's see here. I just saw a question pop up in the chat. Okay. It says, do you have any person or thing that gave you great influence on your career development and path forward? A friend, a family member, or a schoolmate?
Let me think about this here. Yeah, I mean, obviously, right? I think at the end of the day, a lot of us, especially those like me, who get very, very influenced by the environment, the people I hang out with, it definitely affects me a lot. And there's no one person I can bring this out upon, because I hung out with various different types of people, but by the time I entered Waterloo, there was a certain friend group that I started joining. I guess there is one person. So there is one friend. We were in the same program. And it's not that this is the one person that I want to talk about, but I think this person probably had the highest weighting. But because, this person cared about the same career development, cared about a lot about career, cared a lot about, joining hackathons and all that sort of stuff. I think that influenced me, and we influenced each other back a lot. So yeah, there definitely was, but that's not just that one person who did that to me, right? I think the whole general friend group I had in Waterloo pushed me to become who I am today. But yeah, no, there definitely is. And that's why I highly suggest that you put in a lot of consideration into who you hang out with, especially going into university, because that matters a lot down the road. I think environment is very underappreciated and underestimated.
Thank you. We only have around 7 minutes left. So for anyone that still has any questions, please put them in now so we can get to them. If no one has anything, we'll just move on with our background and career questions. So I'm sure a lot of us are curious. What are some day-to-day things that you have to do at your job?
I mean, yeah, there's a lot. This is pretty, I guess, easy to answer, but I don't want to bore a lot of the high school folks in here. So I think to give it a more simplified answer, it's more so there's a lot of meetings. I'm not someone who codes in my team because I'm a program manager. What we do is essentially we try to help drive projects along. We help try to unblock various different coding issues. We try to help connect our engineers to the right people. We try to understand the business value of what we're building from a software product standpoint, and then try to make sure that what the software engineers are building is the right thing for the customer, right? So the day-to-day stuff, if I drawing that back, would be a lot of means to connect these engineers and various different stuff that needs to be talked about to the right people, as well as various different business analysis reports. Very obviously boring stuff. I think from a I guess if you're not an adult, it can get pretty tedious sometimes. But then I think generally speaking, a lot of various different design reviews, understanding how the product and the software works, and then so reading up on that, applying that back to various different knowledge, doing a lot of weekly what we call checkpoint calls to see what needs new updates from the team, what needs to be built, what needs to be unblocked, and then usually there's like 20 action items on my list every day. So there's always stuff to do, whether that's building up a report, making a dashboard real quick, looking up some sort of data analysis task, helping an engineer check up on some sort of code blocker, replying to hundreds of emails. And then obviously, I think as a PM, if you do know what PM is, from the core responsibility, driving the feature, and we do that by writing requirement documents. Occasionally, sometimes PMs would also do designs. So we drive requirement documents by writing out what the problem is. So if this is like a product that you're trying to help the engineers build, you help the engineers by understanding the problem they're trying to solve. So you write that down, you understand all the edge cases, by edge cases, I mean those small things, the small details that otherwise would have been missed, right? So all those things, you try to make sure that you capture that so that the engineers don't have to worry about anything but just code. And I think that's pretty much what I would say. I know like the day-to-day, I think it's very hard because every day is different. But in summary, that's what I would say is my answer. There's always, various different hard, like, put your head down, have to put on some noise canceling headphones and grind my way through. There's a lot of stuff where, you need brain power to do. And there's other things like, just listening to a meeting, listening to a call to understand more about some sort of technology that has some sort of, application to you. That sort of stuff. It's all in there. Because you take so much responsibility in the actual product success, there's always going to be, various different managers and stuff reaching out to you to say, hey, have you taken responsibility on this? Can you look into this? Can you look into that? And then you reply to the emails and you get the stuff done. And then it's a back and forth process. And once you really get integrated in sort of this type of team, oh man, it can get pretty stressful, to say the least.
All right, thank you for your response on that. So we have another question from the chat, and it says, any suggestions for grade 12 students to select majors and universities?
Yeah, go to Waterloo. That's my answer. Obviously I'm just kind of half joking on that. I think Waterloo definitely was pretty pivotal for me personally. But I think overall, care more about the actual program you are joining rather than the university name, a little bit more at least. Because the program obviously is what matters, right? It's what's you more than likely might have relevance to your after post-secondary job that you will pursue. For example, if it's some sort of life sciences program because you want to go into med school one day, or just a general business program, business school, whatever it is, because you want to do finance in the future. So yeah, I think care more about the program, but obviously still care about that school name. For me personally, I cared about both. Obviously, I think I covered this. But yeah, I mean, brief answer short, apply to Waterloo because well, obviously also apply to a school that has if you plan to work right out of university, like right after you graduate, try to make sure that you go to a school that has high prospects of landing a job right out of university, right after you graduate as well. So do your research on that. But yeah, at the end of the day, it's like the reputation of that program and how good it is more than anything else, I think.
All right, thank you. Do you have any suggestions for those that are ready to choose a major and some ways that they can determine what they would like to do in university?
Yeah, and to be honest, I think, so if you're, for those who are completely in the dark about what they want to do in the future, myself included, a lot of luck plays into it as well. I think the smartest thing to do, if you're truly not sure what you plan to do, is try to go into a very general program so that you can, once you do realize what you want to do, it's very easy to pivot and specialize in that said major that you want to join, 1 or 2 years down into university by joining that general based program or general related program, right? So taking general first year, second year courses, and then finally being able to specialize. I think that sort of also applied to me, science and business. I didn't know what I wanted to do, both science or business. But then afterwards, I was able to decide based on what I've learned. So I tried to do that. If you're not heavily set already, or you have an idea of what you do want to do, I think that'd be my advice for high schoolers, at least.
All right, thank you so much. So our next question under the general advice category, I think you've already addressed a lot of it. What is an effective way for high school students to plan for university? So for the sake of time, I'm going to go on to the next one, which is, what have your parents done to assist you in achieving your goals?
I think first of all, I was a little bit I think we're very different. I'm sort of an outlier in this aspect, in that my parents are very quote unquote laissez-faire with me. And when I say laissez-faire, I mean, they let me handle a lot of the stuff. They let me make a lot of my own decisions and take responsibility. They were not the ones who had the end say, forcing me to take one major over another. They gave advice, general advice, but then let me choose, make the ultimate decision. And I think that actually helped a lot. And this is different for everyone. Some people require, actual day-to-day advice, day-to-day support. For me, it was a little bit like, I really didn't feel like I didn't need that. I think I just needed my parents to be in the background, supporting me and giving advice as I went on. And I think that worked out a lot in the long run. But if for those who do care a lot about, their parents say into it, I think it definitely still does matter. And I would say for those people, you know, your parents have gone through 20 to 30 years of the job market, the experiences, whatever job they're working in. They know how hard it is to make money, obviously. So definitely weigh in a lot of their opinions into what you think you should be doing. And I think that matters a lot as well.
All right, thank you so much. We're basically out of time at this point, but I just want to squish in this last question, and it is, what are some of your good study/work habits that you've mentioned before?
I mentioned good study/work habits. I think they're all bad.
Library after school and like reviewing your notes. Are there any other ones that you would suggest?
Yeah. No, this doesn't work for everyone, because especially I think for introverted people who are better off being more productive by themselves. But for me, I guess being more of an ambivert, group sessions did help a lot, especially if, like what I mentioned before, of having the right study group and the right environment to study in. Group study sessions, especially, you know, a day or two before an exam or term test, I think did a lot to me. So I'm very lucky to have had a lot of smart friends around me in Waterloo and you know, Churchill as well, obviously, because the group study sessions, they helped a lot. Got to obviously ask dumb questions and look stupid to my friends, but got through the test. I think that's all that really mattered at the end of the day. And then, yeah, group study sessions, try to have like maybe a library session, after school session with 4 or 5 friends or 3 friends, 2 friends, it doesn't matter, right? I think studying with friends, once you both, you know, have reviewed the stuff, doing questions together, it does help a lot, and it pushes both and it drives friendships, right? So I think that's what I would suggest as well for those who are not trying to do that yet.
Thank you so much. We are out of time. Thank you so much for everyone that joined today. A big thanks, of course, to Kasey as well as Jessica and Jing for all of this organizing. Yeah, please check out the things that we have listed in the chat. This includes our website, the Instagram, and YouTube. So the YouTube channel will include the recording of this whole workshop, so you can go review, take a look at that if you want to refresh your memory on anything. Thank you, everyone.
Yeah, thank all of you guys for coming, and yeah, just thank you for the endless support that you've shown this organization. And one last thank you to Kasey for providing us with so much information. So yeah, you guys are free to go. And yeah.